Yes, sure y'all have my presented budget that we have proposed. The Medic 2 that we have at this point, well, I guess first let me ask about, y'all have questions about my presented budget before I go any further? Okay.
Pretty cut and dried.
One new thing in it was the rank structure, if you kind of talk about that.
You know, I have, I don't know if they want to have all the lists or not. Did you give them a copy of the structure that I had? Okay. He's used me making the copies out to him, but, if y'all don't have any objection, I may just go down this and then I'll get out of y'all's way. You don't have questions, but.
Whichever way you want to do it.
We're looking at the Medic 2 is the one that we have, is the third run truck at this point. That's the old truck, the short box. That's the one that when this truck, well, probably the next truck comes in, you have, this actually is the truck that was bought with the CARES money. And, yeah. So they put that ahead of anything else. This was, the other truck is coming in, will be identical to this one, except it will be a Dodge. That's what we had put out first.
Right.
And when we was going to try to get an identical truck with CARES money, they could not give that. They just didn't have the chassis available, except in a Ford. And yeah, we were fine with getting a Ford also. So that's what this is first.
I want to see it.
I actually drove the truck as a 550. I actually drove the truck back from Missouri. Really drives well. It handles better than the 450s with that heavier box. It's very, very pleased with the truck so far. It's got 800 or 900 miles on it. That was really enjoying the drive. So.
Right.
That's still in the breaking in, though.
Okay.
Has it run any calls yet?
As what?
Has it run any calls yet?
No, ma'am. We've still got to apply for a temporary permit through the Office of EMS. And we still have to get a radio put in it. I got to get it weighed. We just got it back last Friday delivery.
Oh, okay.
It's new to us too.
Yeah.
It's been sitting outside down at the station, all locked up because we don't have anywhere else to store it at this point. Unless we store it up here at the county administration building out of the shelter. But we tried to put it in the same, but our third run truck is, but it just won't fit. It's just too long. So that'll be the project that we're working on, trying to get everything switched over and changed over quick as we can. And with that being said, the Medic 2 that we're going to pull out first, we're looking to transfer that to the emergency management side. Of course, that'll be up to your all's decision too, but we was looking at something to pull a trailer that emergency management got. So that was what we figured would be something to work good to do that with, was the short box truck. But that's just has been in the thought process and nothing's happened with that yet. The Medic 1 is actually the truck that would be next in line. That's a 2015 Ford, and it's got roughly 160, 170,000 on it now. That's the one that we'll be replacing, and I don't know, Cindy, did they have a copy of the quote for the refurbished to remount? Okay. That would be a remount to a new chassis, remount the box. The box will also be refurbished, and it's an O-stage box, just like the truck we have out here. And it would go on a new truck chassis, and that's the cost if we want to continue with that route.
And the correct chassis.
And sir?
The correct chassis to fit the box.
Well, I hope so, yes. Yes, it would be, yeah, it would, that's,
I'm just referring back to some other problems with the other box and the other problem. We don't want to.
right, but that's not, I did not handle that situation.
I know you did.
Yeah.
I know you did. I just want to make sure this one, everything matches up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Some of y'all are interested. I'm actually pretty big on Osage boxes just due to the way they're built. They're really tough, stout boxes. Everything is based on a 1 foot center, even the top. When you talk about 2-inch metal, 1 foot center, you don't have much space in between. So that's a whole other story, and I won't bore you with it at this point. But so the Medic 1, if so, would be available for a remount, and we would not have to purchase another load system, which that load system is between $40,000 and $50,000. It already has it on it. The load system is built already on the box, and we have the stretcher, so that would not have to be purchased again.
Good.
So we save county both ways by doing it that way. Medic 3, as we have now, will become the third run ambulance and also rotate. Medic 3 is a 2017, and it's got going up upwards towards 110, 115,000 on it at this point. It was new remount in 2017. That one we got to pull it out when we get one available to send it out. Now I need to go out for a repair because the deer hit the side of it, messed up the fender and door. So it's got to go in for repair before we can put it as a third run truck. And all that hinges on the other truck should be available in May, is when it should be scheduled for completion. So we got a little time to get a few things in order. Also in the budget, I was requesting a third Lucas. We have two already. One we got on the grant, and you all purchased one for us. Those things has been invaluable to my staff, and to save lives. So thank you all for what you've done with helping us get that. I'm requesting a third Lucas for the third run ambulance, where it would be available for anybody's available to run a third call and the volunteers are not around. We already have one on that truck. The cost of that's $14,896.50. And we possibly can get a 50-50 grant if it's awarded when the grant comes available. And just have to get, we have the time to deal with the grants. And also the laryngoscopes, the McGrath, 3 of those, I'm not sure if y'all know what those are, but if you have to put a tube in somebody, they quit breathing, you put the tube in, the McGrath has a small camera that you're not going in blind. It's got a camera on the end of when you go into you see the larynx and the vocal cords, you can actually visualize that they're white. Generally, if you don't smoke, you can visualize two white lines. You want to put the tube between those white lines. That camera just helps you see that. And you get instead of just a blind innovation, more or less you can see what you're doing. And those are not necessity. It's just a comfort to have them because you can actually see where you're going with it.
Can I?
Well, I was going to say, I look at it as a necessity because if you're putting that scope in, you damage one of those cords, you've got problems.
Sure, you're exactly right.
From that standpoint, I know people that have had a procedure in the hospitals that actually had those vocal cords nicked and have long-range problems from it. So I see that as a necessity myself.
I agree. It's we've done it for years the old way, but this is new. Something is new, and these have been on our radar for a few years. And last year we made a choice of getting the pediatric innovation, the pediatric Bravo kits. We made a choice to get those over these because just pediatrics. I think that's a very important thing too.
So this is something that helps. It aids you in your procedures, but it also helps protect the patient.
You're exactly right. Exactly right. And we could stand the chance for a 50-50 grant on those also. When I say these, I try to have the time to it took to get the ambulance on a 50/50 grant took quite a while. And we're still working with that, aren't we, Cindy?
Yes.
But still, it's worth it for what the money
Yeah.
we can save for county.
Mhm.
Number 7 here, requesting the rank structure that Cindy was mentioning there a while ago, would increase leadership span of control, and would include job description as to what's expected. I'm not there, or nighttime or something. It's just, it's up to each individual now, because I can't be there 24/7, and we've gotten large enough now that I think we need more supervision to make things run smoother and just a better efficient operation.
Accountability.
And to somebody being, somebody that has to answer for some things. And I'm tired of answering for it all, man. I'm just kidding. I'm not.
You're not giving up that spot, are you?
No, I'm not. It is nice to go, when I have, I think 17 full-time staff and 16 or 17 part-time staff. And it gets pretty hectic if you don't keep a close eye on things.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we do a bad job now. I don't think we do. I have some supervisors, what we call shift supervisors, and they're not compensated for it. It's just they're paramedics, and we more or less assigned them the role to help look after it. But it's not like if they were getting compensated for it. I just think it would make a better work environment if you had that structure in place. So I'm requesting that. And I request that we remove, and there's no cost to this, of course, but at least up front, but request to remove must have 1 year experience from job description for EMS, so we can hire directly from the training in the school and just bring them in.
Okay.
This has come back to bite me a few times, where we've had to give them a year before they can come to work for us. We lose them to bigger corporations like Caribbean or AMR or another county. And so we're having a hard time getting, especially the ALS side applications anyway. We have a hard time competing with group companies like Caribbean and AMR that can jack the price up to get help.
So they're taking them right out of school
Yes,
and training them.
yes. They take them right out of class and train them the way they want to train them and put them to work. And I think that's probably a smart idea.
Do you feel like that would be accomplished, that you could do the same thing and accomplish the same?
We do it now. I mean, we do it now when I could give you several examples of somebody that's had their EMT a year, but they have not actually worked anywhere, they just volunteered.
Gotcha.
And so when they come in, we put them on a truck as a third person on a truck. We'll let them see
So the shadow.
with how you do things with other people. And of course, the first thing you have to learn what the stuff's out on the truck to help on the calls. And so we do that now. And we have a Justin Thomas is my training supervisor. He also is one of the supervisors that's on the list here that's going into sergeant. But we have a list that they have to complete before they can actually go on the truck by themselves. And we actually feel like we want them to feel comfortable being by themselves. So in essence, we really do that now. I don't see it being any different. And train them like you want, instead of having to retrain them from somewhere else, maybe pick up bad habits. So I like to think that we're some of the best. So that was something I had just wanted to remove from the job description of applying.
And that's something our EMS board can do, right?
This year we've had a lot of time when we didn't have 2 trucks 24/7. Probably the worst year ever. I can remember. Once in a while, you'll always have maybe where you don't have, and you have 3 people. You don't have enough to run 2 trucks. When you're doing that situation, you have dispatch call out for a volunteer rescue. If nobody shows, then you ask for a fireman. Generally, you always get a fireman to come drive for you.
Right.
And that, generally that always works. And so we've had to do that in the past, but not as much as we have had to do this year. I think the COVID, well, I know when we put the numbers to this, you can see that the paper I got in front of you there with the staff hours due to COVID-19 and the staff surgeries. I had 2 that was out long periods of time with wrist surgery and neck surgery and shoulder surgery, I think. So it's had some time out with that. 1,226 hours was due to COVID-19. Not some of them had COVID, but then some of them was the scare part that they wasn't sure and had to be out.
Quarantine.
So that was a lot. And you go back and look at it all the times from this. What I'm looking at is from January 1 to February of last year to February the 28th. This year was the time span I was looking. 720 hours due to recovering from the surgeries. With a total of 1,946 hours from COVID and surgeries, 1,081.5 were covered. Of those hours were picked up by full-time and part-time staff, which figures out to around 55 or 56% of the shifts that was picked up by other members of the staff. 864.5 hours went uncovered, but we always at least had 1 truck. And most time we had, just like I said, we had a 3rd person there. We were just missing 1. And we could, if we had a call, we could ask for a driver from rescue or fire. Some of these times are covered by volunteer staff. And I or my staff always notifies dispatch and the volunteer captain, which is Daniel Summers, and request coverage when possible by the volunteers. And several times this year, they have came out and stood by our station all night, as it just may be 1. But they would come and stay all night, which I think is a huge part for them to do for us, and to make sure that we got 2 trucks that we can at least run. And sometimes they staff the 3rd truck. That they would just come out and hang out when and know things was pretty busy. So,
How many mutual aids did you have to rely on during that period? Do you know?
I would have to get that number from dispatch. Mutual aids like with
Like if you had a call, like if,
other counties.
yeah, if it was just so busy, or you didn't have anybody.
I don't
During
know.
this period, was it an increase, obvious, or were we able to cover it all?
We were not able to cover it all. I mean, there would be times we would be 3 and 4 deep in calls with volunteers and paid out.
Yeah.
And we'd have to call from Roanoke County or have to get Reiner to come and help us out. Not a large number. It wasn't a large number
Yeah.
of that, but it's,
I just figured it was probably some.
right. That number went away when we went to 2 trucks 24/7. That number went down. a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
That was, that used to be very high, and I think Roanoke even had a meeting with us back in 2015.
Right.
And I think it was in May of 2015, wanted us to pick up our service a little bit, and that's when, shortly after that, by July, is when we went to 2 trucks 24/7. And it's, we still have some issues, but I mean, it's hard to cover for 5th and 16 calls.
Oh, I know. I mean, yeah.
And we've actually run some mutual aid for other counties,
Good.
in that time with Montgomery and
Right.
even Patrick County. Some mutual aid stuff with him.
Yeah.
So.
Have you seen, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, I thought you were done.
I was just gonna ask how, it seems to me from observation that, maybe the volunteers have actually started running more calls, being more active in the last year.
I would have to agree with that, Mark.
It-
They, Daniel has, which I've always had a good working relationship with the captain. We've always seemed to get along well, but Daniel is really, he's really tried to step it up, to try to get them to run more calls and put some things in place to make it easier. And a lot of them, like, if they're precepting, if there's not enough volunteer staff to run with them, we invite them to come run with us.
Yeah.
You know, we precept the volunteers for them. You know, they work with us and we work well with them.
It just seemed like it was, like things were on the uptick. It seems like a positive relationship now. And
I really hesitate to say anything negative at all. It seems like this younger group has taken over.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, I've had a good relationship with the others too, but in the past there has been some conflicts that seem to be resolved now. If anything goes on with the building or anything that they need to be aware of, I got one person I call and they make sure it's good. And they're also trying to put some locks on the doors, that keypads where everybody has their own number. And when somebody enters the building, it emails Simon, and he said he could set it where we email me when we come around to our side. When people open that door, it sends you an email, so you know who's been in the building. Now, where it is now, you really don't know who all's got keys. So it's just be a little safer place, and I think this day and time, that's a good idea. So they had come to me and asked, would I talk with them, to the administrator, to see if we would help out any with those locks. And like now we got a dryer that's bad. It's an old dryer, but we use it 90% of the time. You know, the EMS people, the paid side, and he had come and asked, would we be willing to help with that? And I said, well, that's a question for the board and the administrator, but feel sure that we can talk about it. So.
I just wanted to just acknowledge that I think that they're trying.
Stepped up.
I think they really are. They don't have the numbers of people, you know, at this point. But what they do have, they'll come, a lot of times they'll come tell me, okay, I got a truck, we can be here on Wednesday or Tuesday from say 8 in the morning to 2. So we know that we have help that length of time.
And I also wanted to mention they staffed 3 of the 4 vaccine clinics. EMS did 1 and Rescue did 3 of them.
That's great.
I just had one question. I know a long time ago we had a lot of calls coming from a nursing home that were somewhat transport calls.
Right.
And I know they finally went with an ambulance service. During this COVID, have you seen an uptick where the ambulance service is pulled back from coming?
Yes. Yes, they've actually told us, and when I spoke to some of them before, and we always do it. I mean, to me, it's not a.
I'm not saying don't do it. I was just curious where we were at on that situation.
I'd rather, most time you can get it and do it and get it done before you cause all the problems.
Right.
I have seen an upswing in that, because I think it's just, a lot of these places are overwhelmed, especially when at the height of COVID.
Right.
A lot of these places are overwhelmed with transports.
Well, I know I've talked to people in other counties that it's not just isolated to us. The ambulance services, due to COVID, have pulled back their services, and their local rescue and EMS or pay staff has been picking it up. So I figured it was and I wasn't implying we shouldn't do it. No, I was just curious as if it had impacted us the same as other areas.
We went through a little spell there that we just didn't have many calls, because I think everybody was afraid of anybody else. You know, I think everyone was afraid. And then we went to the hospital, and then we went through a spell there that, and all we were seeing was possible COVID patients. And some of our staff got it, and But we tried to head that off every way we could and try to trace it back to where we had, somebody was even close, we put them out of work. So, but that's goes back to some of these numbers. And if COVID had not come around, I think our staffing would have been a lot better this year.
Sure. Did you also notice that, and of course, I'll preface this like Jerry did his, I mean, this is in no way, shape, or form any kind of a criticism or anything, but just an observation from, how we watched. Did you notice that even our local clinics, our doctor's offices were maybe, just concerned about people and called you a little bit more? Did you see an uptick there? Or not really?
I don't think I really saw a huge upkick with that. And we get several calls out.
Well, absolutely, and I mean, you'd want to.
What I have seen a large rise in is, help me get out of the floor.
The gravity crews.
They're calling us to get them off of the commode or out of the floor, or sometimes it's just raising them up and setting them back on the bed. I mean, it's just.
That's something we're gonna have, we've talked about that.
We have a lot of that, and some of it really concerned me was back in the ice storm. And there's a place over in the far end of the county. I won't call where it's at, but it's tough to get into. I mean, it's way off the beaten path, and when you go down this driveway, it's really steep and it's straight off down below there. You get sliding. You can wave by to about $300,000 ambulance because it's going. So I was really concerned and would make some phone calls and radio and say, hey, you guys, if it's the least bit bad, don't attempt it, because you had to walk in and go call and get some more help on four-wheelers or something.
Right. But, I think I saw you go out there one time in your vehicle, didn't you?
I'm sorry?
So I believe I saw you go out one day in your vehicle on one of those calls.
Oh, yeah, and I go with them if possible. If I'm here where I can, I'll take the response vehicle smaller, and I'll go into those places and
I saw you
see what we can do.
There was at one time discussion of trying to.
A gravity team.
But help me if I remember, but also, you're going to have somebody part of that team that can evaluate at EMT level, evaluate the person as to whether you need to pick them up and put them back in the bed or load them up and take them.
You would have to be an EMT basic.
Correct.
Right now, we try to run an ALS person on every truck. But I have talked about for a while too, and I guess with you, some of you all, we talked about having a basic ambulance.
Right.
To do basic transports out of the nursing home, because most of those are just, they need to go to the emergency room, but it's not emergent. They got some bad lab work, so they need to be took to the emergency room. And what we're doing, we're taking a paramedic or an intermediate out of service for 2 hours to bring them back. So if you had a crew that would, even if it was just 40 hours a week, to start with a daytime truck of a BLS crew, to send them to lift them and move them where they need. But
it does seem a lot of those calls are not happening like overnights. Many of those calls are some of them are, but some of them are happening, after breakfast or, I mean, I don't know.
Time to go to bed.
That's time to go to bed, but some of those are not as late as our normal bedtimes. They're earlier in the evening.
Yeah,
I don't
agree. Yeah, I don't know.
It's getting out of bed.
That's just when you go. Some of them even mentioned about changing the way we do some billing. If you bill for those calls, then they might think it would get. And they might think to call their neighbor to come help.
That's what I did.
EMS, but
that's something
I don't know
I
what
noticed.
the answer.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to butt in, but I've noticed, these alerts I get, that there's 2 or 3 residences that you got multiple calls a week. Because they fell on the floor or they need help getting in bed or something like that. I've often wondered if there was some way there you could get a caregiver close by, you know, like you was talking about
A neighbor.
a neighbor or somebody like that, you know.
We had one gentleman that was, one of those, I think, like you were talking about, that he would go several times a week to his residence. They were genuinely sorry to call us, and we didn't make them feel that way. We just said, you know, is there anybody that you can call? And if we're busy, we won't be able to respond. You know, if we have somebody else, they said that they just really don't have anyone that they know of, and you know, the patient had cancer, and
Yeah.
so I mean, if it's terminal, I mean, you don't, so you really hate to say anything because it's, you know, they're having a bad enough time as it is. So,
Yeah.
but then you have some that call just because they can call.
Right, yeah.
You know, those are the ones you like to see stop.
Yeah, there's a couple of them I think fits in that category, but I'm not gonna make that call,
Yeah.
but, you know, I thought, well, you know, where you live, sure you got a neighbor close by that can help you. You know, like if you lived in a mobile home court, you know, maybe there's somebody that wasn't working and could run over and help you, you know.
And I think
But,
part
you
of
know, but you don't know how to go about getting somebody to do it.
And you've got, most Floyd County people would do it in normal times.
Mhm.
but now,
But with the liability issue, I don't know.
but you know, it's also too, speaking to both of your points, you know, a lot more folks have moved in the last few years, and they don't really know their neighbors as well as
Right.
those who have lived here for all their lives, or even the last 40 years or 50 years. So there's many newer folks that have moved in that they really don't know their neighbors, and they don't know who else to call. But this is not going to be a problem, I don't think, that goes away, because as we continue, we talked about it earlier, as our population continues to age, and we seem to be getting more folks moving in that are older, you know, over 50, I think it's, you know, it's inevitable that this is something that we're going to have to tackle.
Yeah, I even thought about maybe like a van, because typically we have to have at least two people
Yeah, get
to be able
closer
to
to
get
you.
some of these people up. But if you don't have an ambulance to go,
Right, yeah,
because you don't ever know, that person may get to the hospital.
right.
That's it.
So you wind up running two vehicles instead of just one, and so,
Right.
You're almost gonna have to run an ambulance, and like you said, at least basic EMT to evaluate the situation at that point.
right.
Because somebody could have broken a leg and not even know it, or an
Right.
arm,
Or a hip.
or a
Yeah, you
head.
see that a lot, because you go to move and you're like, oh, let's don't get over here.
They're sitting there just fine, but the moment they move,
Yeah.
And they still say,
Don't
put it back in the chair.
Put it back in
No,
the chair.
I don't think so.
yeah, they do, a lot of them do, yes.
I guess that's about all. I have other things that's changing in the world of EMS, but I just spoke to the field coordinator for this area, Mike Garnett. He thinks it's gonna be further down the road. I'll mention this and we'll put it in your radar, but eventually I think the hospitals are going to go away from fixing the drug boxes for us. When we carry, most ambulances carry just one drug box. We're so far out from the hospitals, we carry two on both ambulance, front run ambulances. Our third run truck, we just keep one box on it. But we carry two. For instance, if we come pick you up and we give you Zofran if you're nausea vomiting, that's going to run out before we get you to the hospital. So we have to crack another drug box open to give you enough medicine to get you there on time. Some of the codes that we run here in Floyd, you're so far out, by the time you give the epi and all the stuff that you got to give, you're running out of drugs. So they let us, we requested it, and they let us carry two drug boxes on each truck. But eventually, this is going to go away. The pharmacies is going to quit restocking those at the hospital. And we exchange each one of them at the hospital. If we take a patient now to Galax Hospital, and they're not a part of the EMS council region in this area, they don't exchange drugs with us or drug boxes. We have to, in turn, we'll take them to Galax, we use drug box. We gotta come back, you gotta have to change our box. So eventually, by what I've been told through the field rep, and I gotta meet with him next week too, on the 17th, but the hospital's gonna stop doing that and we'll have to supply our own drugs. I reached out to our neighboring county up here, Carroll County, the Galax Grayson service. I know some of those guys, they actually do their own drugs. Surrey County and Mount Airy, North Carolina, they do their own drugs. And they spend between $25,000 and $30,000 a year on drugs. That will change our billing. And we have to bill for drugs that we use.
So the hospitals have been giving us this?
The hospitals are exchanging those for us right now. Yes, they are.
Wow.
And once you open the box, it's done, even if you just take one thing out of it, if I remember.
It's done. You break the seal, you carry it to the hospital, they reuse the stuff that's in there, but
Right.
we have to make sure it's clean and wiped down, and they exchange with us. We do sign a paper and go about our merry way. But I said, basically that's gonna stop, that's what I understand. And they said probably 3 years ago, it'd be 3 to 5 years, they sent a survey around to each agency in Virginia, wanted to know where you got your drugs. I filled that out and sent it back. And so I just feel like that's, all I'm doing now is just mention it to you all, so you have it on your radar. Depending on how we do with that, we'll have to have somewhere to store those drugs in a locked and secure place. And part of this, what I'm asking for, the rank structure, part of those will be the ones that will have access probably to get in to get the drugs, would be the sergeants. Not everybody would have a hold of it.
It'd have to be limited, you have to have somebody responsible for that.
Correct.
And they're gonna have to track everything they do in triplicate, I'm guessing, at minimal.
We've got, and I think you have to have cameras, and you gotta have a room, and it's locked, and then another locked compartment that's climate controlled. And I haven't went to Galax Grayson yet to see their facilities that they do it in, but y'all also got to have pharmacy license and DEA license. And that's, all this stuff is going to come down on
Is there a
us
way that you can team
to
up?
deal with one of these days. And
That's what I was
Yeah.
What about one of the local pharmacies, is it possible they might?
yeah, but they're not open 24 hours.
Well, that's true.
You got to be able to get you.
But, I mean, is there a way that, I just wonder if there's a way that you could run 2 or 3 drug boxes and then be able to exchange them during other hours. I don't know, it's just a thought.
Well, I mean, all of this is up. Like I say, I don't have a lot of answers for you right now. But I've got it on the docket for Kevin and I to go to Galax Grayson just to view their system.
Yeah.
And Jason Busick is the one that's EMS manager up there. He's been very good and helpful to help me with a lot of things that I had questions about, because they're already there. They're doing that in their region.
And also, this is not only going to affect paid staff, it affects our volunteers.
Right.
It will, yeah. It'll affect. That's what I'm saying. It's going to change the way we do things here. But when I talked to Mike Garnett, 'cause I had heard rumor that this was going to be that there was one in place by the end of the year, and he said no. He said, I've not heard that rumor. He said, I do feel like it's coming, but he said, we really don't know when. He said, I sat on that board. So he said, at the end of the year, he said, I don't think it's coming that quick.
The reason when you said pharmacist license, that kind of perked my interest, because, I mean, if you have your pharmacy license, that's a $120,000 job.
Well, no, I don't mean you have to be a pharmacist.
Okay.
You just got to have like a pharmacy license to be able to get the drugs. Like, we can get a lot of drugs through Dr. Lander right now. I mean, he has to sign off on what we use, but I mean, we can order drugs and use his DEA license and stuff right at this point. And then maybe we can still use his stuff when we comes to that point. I just don't know yet. I don't have a lot of answers. reason I wanted to put it before you to be thinking about is that's one of these things that's gonna happen. And we have to have somewhere to store it and people to be in charge of it and how to be able to access it.
Once that box is open and you can't use it, that unit is basically shut down. I mean, you might be able to transport, but as far as providing any medical attention at all, you know.
Oh, you have to, and you're not really supposed to use that box only as one person.
Right.
Yeah, that's
what I meant.
If you're running 2 boxes, I guess you could potentially run 2 calls with it.
I mean, I guess you could, but
If you didn't have to open that up.
Yeah.
But, I mean, typically, when we run a call, if I'm available, and we don't transport, if I'm available, I'll go change the box.
Right.
Keeps the ambulance back in
Right.
service.
Right.
But if, you know, at nighttime, the ambulance, that's what,
Yeah.
we're supposed to go and change the box
Right.
when we use it.
And so they have to wait to change the box, and that keeps them away from the county, right? Do they change it right at the same time?
Yeah, you just walk in the hospital and go back to the pharmacy in the
Right.
hospital and pretty much sign the paper and get the
swap
numbers.
it out.
Hand one out and take one out.
Yeah.
Boxes are sealed.
And if I'm not mistaken, the way Jason explained it to me, Jason Busick explained it to me, you know, that's Grayson, in this locked room, they may have 4 to 6 boxes that's
Right.
been already ready to go.
Yeah.
So if they run a call, they have a place that they put the used box to seal it up, and the next morning, the supervisor or the sergeant comes in that has keys to the room that has the drugs in it. They restock it, set it back out on a shelf for another one. But, so that's how they switch out their stuff. And I'll learn more about it, and I'll keep you informed when I.
So that system there, if needed, you may be able to use, if you had to, you may be able to work out something with the pharmacy that would be able to,
Yeah.
if it was an issue, I don't know.
We will, I'm sure they'll give us enough time to get something going, because a lot of people will have to build
Yeah.
rooms or something in their facility.
Yeah.
But that's something that I'm not sure what we're gonna do, because, you know, we're in the volunteers building.
Right.
So that's something that's another thing we'll have to think about.
Hopefully we can come up with some idea that works for both groups, paid and the volunteer.
I think that would be best, be
Yeah.
cost effective. Anything, I hate to keep boring you all, that's all I have, unless you have some questions of me. And just so you know, I've not stuck my tongue out in any one.
Yeah.
Will somebody be able to bring the truck over so they can see it before they leave?
I did, I thought.
That's right.
It's outside.
I keep looking.
We've been looking at it.
The only thing that I would ask is, and I don't have a problem, you know, we were talking about removing that 1 year of experience. Could we run that by legal counsel just to make sure we're not stepping into something? I don't think we would be, but you understand why I wanna maybe run that by legal counsel before we take any action on that. Just to
I'm
see.
gonna give you one example right quick. We have a young man that's a volunteer at the station. He done his EMT here. His name is Simon Kissinger, as they say his last name. He wanted to come to work for us. And I told him, I said, Simon, I said, we have to have more years experience. It don't mean you have to work somewhere with years experience, but you have to have years experience. So he went straight to, excuse me. He went straight to Caribbean, and they hired him. He's working for them now, and he picks up overtime shift, and he's basic. He's between the shift differential and the overtime shifts, he can make up to $30 an hour.
Yeah.
And, but he still wants to come work for us.
Right.
He's not been, he's probably got more experience than several that's out there that's been an EMT a year, because he runs calls constantly. Volunteer and.
Right.
Look, I'm not saying I'm opposed to taking it out. I understand what you're talking about. I just want to make sure that from legal end, when I step out of one hole into another hole.
Sure. But my point with that was not, I was not leaning towards that at all. My point was that we're short-staffed. And he could have picked up some of those shifts that was open if we hadn't had that in place.
Well, I agree totally. I just want to make sure on the.
And often in their first year, the people have a lot more energy.
And they want to run it, they want to learn, they kind of, yeah. Yep.
Before you get burned out.
Yes, to your point, Mr. Booth, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I have a list of things you guys have said that about today, so I have 3 things. I'll speak about this, and then my own list of 3 things.
Yeah.
Separate from you.
Well, thank you all for your guidance and thank you for your help and enjoy the conversations I have with you all and helps me do my job better. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would y'all like to look at the new truck?
Nah.
Weren't we going to try and do this a little bit, like, once a quarter? Isn't that our plan?
I would like to. I think we should.
So I think I think it's important, and I think, we had discussed this as a board,
That's what our minutes report.
and that is what our minutes reflected, so I just wanted you to know.
Whether it's a day meeting or a night meeting, whatever.
Whatever
works
is
for you.
convenient for you.
I'm
yeah.
pretty much any time is fine with me. So I didn't mean to take up this much of your time. I had, normally my list would have been a lot shorter.
Well, if we do it once a quarter,
You'll sure, they should be shorter.
right, and that way we can, kind of, we would have known a little bit more about stuff, and maybe we could have gotten this, year training taken care of quicker, and you might not have had as many short shifts, and, yeah.
Sounds good to me. As long as y'all carry sticks and stuff, I'm okay.
So are you proposing a date for the next meeting before you close? Or-
Well,
You probably ought to.
well, either propose a day, or well, why don't we do it at our, let's see,
June.
this is March. And we'll do it in our, the last month of each quarter at the day meeting. And just have that as a standard, or our day meeting.
Yeah.
June
Hold on a
8th?
second. Or December, March, June, September.
Yeah, September, correct.
Okay.
So June 8th?
If that suits all we
Should we adjourn before we go outside?
June is a rough one.
And
June is a rough month to have meetings.
They don't have to be. I mean, like we keep up
Right.
on our dating. Keep
During the
up.
day meeting. That's
Visit
what it is.
for
It's once a quarter.
15 minutes.
Do it before noon, so we'll hate you.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Right.
And then we just go out the door.
Put him on the agenda for 9:30.
Well, if we put him
Or
on,
8?
or if we put him on the agenda at 11:30, he can go with us and help get how to work ahead of.
How you do a squirrel?
Sounds good to me.
So we will adjourn till June.
8.
So a call meeting.
Right.
Just a little bit of time.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion second.
All right.
I'm not gonna ask for
Yes.
discussion.
Mr. Beaver.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes,
Mr.
yes, yes.
Booth.
This will be something that y'all will get, or to do away with that on the, when we just find out, y'all let us know how we need to do
Yeah.
that. That's what.
We can probably vote. What do you think?
Well, if y'all find out about our next night meeting, we can have a call meeting then of the EMS.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it's quite the same advertising as it